and this is Carden Calder, the Managing Director and Founder of Blue Chip Communication, and we're here today to talk to you about the next in our series of videos looking at strategies to stop or hold a perceptual crisis in financial services. Today, we want to talk about the strategy known as stealing thunder.
Indeed, which is breaking the news yourself rather than waiting for others to do it.
And what is involved in breaking news first? I guess it's getting out on the front foot rather than being approached by journalists and being in a position to say no comment.
Right. So if we talk about this purely as a crisis communication strategy, and it has much broader use than that, but if we talk about it in the context of crisis communication, where you have bad news for your stakeholders, it might be as a result of something you've done yourself as a corporate, it might be a result of third-party actions, or it could be, incidental. But at the end of the day, it's not going to play well for your brand if you don't manage it. This is the ultimate in proactive crisis communication. This is where the company or an individual makes the decision to tell the story themselves rather than waiting for it to come out. You then have choice of channel, and you need to be sure when you do it that you have a good story to tell. So it's not necessarily a story you tell unless you're confident that you've taken responsibility for the issue, you have at least a partially thought through remediation plan for it, or a next steps that are reasonable, and that you are, in short, taking ownership for making things better.
Mm-hmm. Taking ownership and owning the story are very, very important in this strategy.
Ownership of the fix,
yes,
and taking ownership of the story itself.
Exactly. So if we break down some of the ingredients, what do we need to get the whole team on board and to execute it seamlessly?
Yeah, good question, because one of the things you need is the team on board. You need your board, CEO and or leadership team having conviction that this is a strategy you can use well. That takes a couple of things. One is a belief that it is a viable public relations strategy, so it is something that you can go out and be proactive around, you can take decisive action rather than sort of sit and wait back. Mm-hmm. If you hesitate on this, you're lost. Mm-hmm. So you have to have a management team who believe in this as a strategy. As I mentioned earlier, you need to have conviction in your position. So that doesn't mean that you're arguing a point. It means that you've taken responsibility for the issue and for fixing it, even if it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
And you also need to have some credibility in the bank with your audiences. If you have no credibility as a corporate for historic reasons, be they short-term or long-term, this is a very hard strategy to pull off. If you are already trusted by certain sections of the media or by some of the stakeholders you're going to talk to, this strategy is much more likely to work. But if you're in a sort of a low credibility situation and you can't find, for example, a journalist who'll give you a fair hearing, or if you don't have control of your own social media channels, for example, or you don't have a spokesperson who's going to run a really good media conference, this is not a strategy to use.
The PR crisis we watched last year was Equifax, and you'll remember that was just a ginormous data breach. I think 150 million Americans, Canadians and Brits were impacted with addresses, dates of birth, credit cards, all those sorts of things. When it was discovered that the execs at Equifax had held on to the information for 6 weeks, that there'd been this breach and that hackers had stolen that information, people were livid, almost as livid as the original, wrongdoing. That's an example of having to move really quickly and really decisively because people were so angry. There was a couple of other things they did as well. The press release that they sent out, full of legal jargon. It wasn't a heartfelt apology. It wasn't putting the consumers and the angst that they must have felt at the centre of the firm's...
They didn't show that empathy.
No empathy, no.
It wasn't the first concern of the firm was what's happened to the people who are affected by this.
Yeah.
And that's a key question to answer in this. If you can't answer what is the impact on you and what are we doing for the people who are most affected, then it's not a strategy to use. And it sounds to me from the Equifax case study that they really did not use this strategy well, and they weren't putting the stakeholders and consumers in particular at the heart of their decision making.
Definitely
so
not.
It really wasn't a strategy that was probably going to work for them in retrospect.
No, exactly. The other thing worth mentioning, as we're winding up the Royal Commission this year, is that if more companies came forward and used this stealing thunder strategy as a way of saying, look, here's a line in the sand, we've done the wrong thing, or there's been a problem, we're addressing it, we're course correcting, and here's what we're going to do better in the future and hopefully lift the industry standards, for example, we wouldn't be seeing so many horrific headlines and such awful information coming out of the Royal Commission. Do you think that's fair?
I totally agree. I think the people who've started to execute this well are the banks.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen the banks come out and start to be really clear about things they don't think they've done well in the past, and that might be because of media or community outcry or consumer lobbies or regulator commentary, but they are now stepping up and accepting that they have not met other people's expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And the instant they started to do that, the instant there's a little bit more commentator and community acceptance that, okay, we see you've got it, we see you see things the way that we do, we're going to now give you that bit more rope to be human, to make mistakes and to improve things. There are other sectors of the finance industry who haven't yet done that, and I would suspect that until they do, many of the stakeholders who matter most to them won't be comfortable with their actions. So this stealing thunder strategy, if you really think it through, it's partly a leadership strategy. It's actually not just about communication. It's actually about seeing things the way that your stakeholders see them and taking the actions they would expect, and then communicating transparently about those actions.
Yep. I like it. Well, thank you so much for watching. We've really enjoyed talking to you today, and we're looking forward to sharing more strategies with you. In the meantime, you can sign up to our Royal Commission blog, and you can find that link to do that on our website.
Indeed. Thanks for watching, and thanks for sharing the journey around crisis communication. It's an incredibly difficult time for financial services in Australia with the level of scrutiny from a Royal Commission, but our aim here is actually to find very positive learnings and to move forward the practice of communication and of leadership communication so that we maintain the confidence that our stakeholders have had historically and we build that into the future.